Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for tuning in. We have a lot to talk about. And to my super chat, thank you. You give me every incentive to rock these live streams. Who do you think is going to ask William Barr? Well, William Barr is going to have the power to declassify documents. Who do you think is going to ask William Barr to declassify this document or that set of applications? Who do you think is going to need this? How about the person conducting a specific criminal probe, an investigation, a criminal probe into the beginning of all this nonsense? That's John Durham. John Durham now has the ability to tie in any loose ends, to fill in the blanks, to find out everything he needs to find out. So I don't remember that being the case with John Huber or Sessions, who recused himself from humanity. I mean, you couldn't have two administrations that are two justice departments that are night and day. Big Mitt, hello. Ramla Farah, hello. Eric H526, everybody wish a happy birthday to Eric H526. I believe today is his birthday. Yeah. Happy birthday, Eric. And so John Durham is going to ask questions. He's going to ask William Barr to declassify documents needed pertaining to how James Comey leaked his memos. Are his memos classified or not? Why did they circumvent the normal protocol? Why didn't Tricia Anderson at the FBI sign off on FISA documents? Why was it Andrew McCabe, Sally Yates of the Justice Department? Andrew McCabe is under criminal investigation. And James Baker, who's under criminal investigation now. Why did they not utilize the normal protocol? That's a big issue. That is a huge issue. Why didn't they utilize the normal protocol? And that's important when you talk about the fact that the Steele dossier is completely and utterly unverified. It's not unverified. It's a complete and utter bunch of nonsense. But let's listen to this. This is really interesting. This is Senator Mark Warner, who is trying to say that the president shouldn't be disparaging the intelligence community because, it's really important to respect them. And this is a new problem and threat that we face as a nation. It's not, I don't care what happens to the Democratic National Committee. Nobody does. We don't even know. We only have high to moderate confidence, and I explained that in my Federalist articles below. The United States government is not confident, is not certain about anything. They're not even certain. Say Trump was never great in your Cuomo. Papahua Samson. Trump was never great. He was never great. The country was never great. Oh, do you want me to? Okay, so hold on really quickly. I'm sorry. I have to do this. Mario Cuomo. Or no. Andrew. Wait, hold on. All right. Governor Cuomo. America was never great. This is what they're working with. This is the really amazing Nocturne 1, thank you. This is what the Democrats are all about in their pseudo-intellectual, bizarre, non-philosophical manner. This is what the Democrats are all about, okay? Check this out. This is before we get to James Comey, another ignoramus.
We're not going to make America great again.
Really? Why? Why, Governor Cuomo? Because we're so awesome? We're so amazingly awesome we don't have to be great anymore?
It was never that great.
It was never that great. Don't you? This is Memorial Day weekend. Could you imagine Cuomo coming out with this nonsense? Could you imagine Cuomo coming out with this nonsense this weekend? No, of course not. This was during the summer, and he was actually running against Cynthia Nixon. He tried, and he easily won, but he was just trying to show how awesome he was, how cutting edge he was. And so let's just listen to this in its entirety, and then we'll get to James Comey, because this shows you everything. By the way, Hillary's running again. Who told you? Who loves you, baby? Who told you? Who told you from H told you? HA told you. I told you from, and you'll find out very soon. I'd say before November. She's running again, but listen to Governor Cuomo.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness.
Oh my God. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, Cuomo. We have not reached greatness. Really? We haven't? Okay. Can you get us there?
We will reach greatness.
Yes.
When every American is fully engaged.
Oh, that's the problem. Everyone longs to be engaged. You mean like before a wedding? You want everyone to get married?
We will reach greatness when discrimination and stereotyping against women, 51% of our population, is gone.
And there you go. But what happens if that takes place and there's still discrimination with other groups? Uh-oh. But anyway, that's Mario Cuomo. We've never been great. Only Madam Cyberhack, the Golden Moo has been great. She's back. She's running. But this is why John Durham is going to need to declassify. Check it out.
It's also, at least allegedly, asking senior leaders of the intelligence community to downplay the Russian investigation or to intervene with the director.
So what? You can downplay anything if it's an unlawful probe.
Yesterday, we had DNI Director Coates and NSA Director Admiral Rogers, who were offered a number of opportunities to flatly deny those press reports. They expressed their opinions, but they did not take that opportunity to deny those reports. They did not take advantage of that opportunity. In my belief, that's not how the President of the United States should behave.
Too bad for you that Hillary lost and that she's running again, she'll lose again. So too bad for you.
Regardless of the outcome of our investigation into the Russia links, Director Comey's firing and his testimony raise separate and troubling questions that we must get to the bottom of. Again, as I said at the outset, I've seen firsthand how seriously every member of this committee is taking his work. I'm proud of the committee's efforts so far.
See, this is why Comey thinks he's untouchable, because he has senators, he has media, he has millions of people who will gravitate towards him because he represents one of the pillars of opposition against Trump. What he doesn't realize is that now John Huber is off golfing. Now John Durham and William Barr, it's a different ballgame. It's a different Justice Department. They're going to go after people. They're going to go after Comey. They know that, look, every single person in government knows that Clinton, her crimes were covered up by Comey. There are documents related to that. There are documents related to why he wrote his exoneration letter before 17 witnesses, including Clinton, when he stated under oath that he didn't do so. That's perjury. He stated under oath he did not, that he waited until the Clinton interview. He did not do that. He did not do that. That's just one of the many things that they can declassify, because all of this, the origins, the beginning, the foundation of the Mueller probe is the mid-year exam. They went from exonerating Clinton to investigating Trump. They went from one probe to another seamlessly. And it's pretty obvious what's going on. Now these people, two of whom are under criminal investigation, but I mean, this is a charade you're listening to, and we already know that the original Inspector General report stated that Comey was insubordinate. Now we know that Loretta Lynch said that he fabricated a quote from her, that she never told him to call it a matter. So who's lying? If she never told him to call it a matter, the Clinton email investigation, and he called it a matter, then did he make it up? Well, there are documents related to that. There are documents related to every single question. And he can declassify now anything he wants, which is fantastic. Which is absolutely fantastic. So let's continue.
Let me be clear. This is not a witch hunt.
Oh, yes, it is.
This is not fake news.
This is June 8th, 2017. In March of 2019, we find out that there was no evidence of collusion, no evidence of obstruction. And the evidence they showed of obstruction is he said, she said, Comey said, Michael Cohen said, Jeff Sessions' aide said, Don McGahn said, no evidence of anything. And if you want to talk about evidence of collusion, Clinton asked China to obtain Trump's taxes from the IRS. I mean, that's okay, but what Trump has said is like this big problem. I mean, they're all over the place. Then you have Clinton working with Russia to obtain the Steele dossier. So, with an active Russian intelligence officer there. So, it's all a bunch of nonsense, but we found out 2 years after this testimony that there was absolutely nothing. They had not one person was charged under the statutes associated with collusion. They had nothing before the investigation. They had nothing after the investigation. They had nothing with the two intelligence reports prior to the investigation. And now Madam Cyberhack is running again, the Golden Moo-Moo. Nocturne 1! Just say Nocturne 1 with your arms. Nocturne 1! Yeah! Thank you. Thank you, Nocturne 1. I'll say it again. Nocturne 1! Thank you. Thank you again.
It is an effort to protect our country from...
Protect our country from what? Finding out that Bernie Sanders was cheated? Our nation cannot know that Deborah Wasserman, the sensual and lovely one, the woman of my dreams, and the human being that gets me going. When I think of Deborah, when I think of her wonderful charm, I say to myself, the Russians informed this country that I was cheated by a luscious, lovely, amazing human being. And then I say to myself, what kind of despicable people, what kind of despicable human beings would inform the country that I was cheated by Deborah Wasserman, whom I love very much? Manson Song. James Comey was a special prosecutor that saved Bill and Hillary in the Whitewater investigation back in the 90s. This is 2.0. Mansom Sung, thank you. Thank you. Whitewater that was just the beginning of all this. Whitewater was a nasty, and we talk about obstruction of justice. There was clear obstruction of justice there with the Clintons. They're like the kings and queens of obstruction of justice. Mansom Sung, thank you. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Let's listen to this.
That quite honestly will not go away anytime soon.
It will not go away anytime soon because you're always going to complain that the Russians wanted you to know that Hillary or a certain Democrat or some part of the Democratic Party was corrupt. You're always just going to blame you're always going to blame Russia. Something happens with Clinton in terms of corruption, or social media, turns against Clinton. It's the Russians. It's such a childish, sophomoric, vapid approach. Like at no other time in U.S. history would people say, "Well, the Russians want you to know this." It's like you see who presided over the uranium sale, and you still hear it's been debunked. It's not been debunked. Nothing has been debunked. It happened. It happened. My God Almighty, it happened. It happened. And then they say, well, it's been debunked. It's been debunked. Let's listen to this.
So, Mr. Comey, your testimony here today will help us move towards that goal. I look forward to that testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Director, as discussed, when you agreed to appear before the committee, it would be under oath. I'd ask you to please stand, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated.
Well, let's make sure he doesn't lie throughout this, huh? Huh?
Director Comey, you're now under oath. And I would just note to members, you will be recognized by seniority for a period up to 7 minutes. And again, it is the intent to move to a closed session no later than 1 p.m.
Okay, hurry up.
With that, Director Comey, you are recognized. You have the floor for as long as you might need.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member Warner, members of the committee, thank you for inviting me here to testify today. I've submitted my statement for the record, and I'm not going to repeat it here this morning. I thought I would just offer some very brief introductory remarks, and then I would welcome your questions. When I was appointed FBI Director in 2013, I understood that I served at the pleasure of the President. Even though I was appointed to a 10-year term, which
Can you imagine 10 years of Comey? Oh, my God.
Congress created in order to underscore the importance of the FBI being outside of politics and
Yeah, outside of politics.
independent, I understood that I could be fired by a president for any reason or for no reason at all. And on May the 9th, when I learned that I had been fired, for that reason, I immediately came home as a private citizen. But then the explanations, the shifting explanations, confused me and increasingly concerned me.
Wait a second. The shifting explanations to your firing, well, should be completely irrelevant to you. You're now a private citizen. So you have nothing to do with the FBI anymore. And furthermore, you're under oath. So you better make sure that you never wrote those, that there's no paper trail stating that you have your own insurance policy, or that you fabricated your classified memos. He's talking about memos that are classified, according to Chuck Grassley. Now, if you type in Comey classified memos, you're not going to get the information that you need because the reporting is horrible nowadays. DC Chamber, thank you. people, they don't, a lot of sites are like, the quote unquote really reputable sites aren't going to say, hey, Comey's memos were classified. They're going to say, well, there's no evidence it was classified. Yes, there is. Chuck Grassley had to read them in a skiff. So he leaked classified memos, which is a crime. But he did so because he said this was all spontaneous. This was spontaneous. And then listen to this explanation.
They confused me because the president and I had had multiple conversations about my job, both before and after he took office. And he had repeatedly told me I was doing a great job and he hoped I would stay.
So what? That happens all the time. In every job in the nation, people are told they're doing a great job and they're fired. So what? You can't sue an employer. Well, you told me I was doing a great job. I mean, if it's like, oh my God, you're getting award after award, yeah, fine, that's different. But they know the context. Everyone knows the context. He was coming in to the presidency after you had exonerated Clinton. Everybody knew that you had covered up Clinton's crimes. So what? He told you you were doing a great job. That doesn't mean that he didn't have grounds to fire you. You were found to be insubordinate in the Inspector General report. So why are you even beginning this talk? You're under oath now. Why are you laying the groundwork for perjury?
And I had repeatedly assured him that I did intend to stay and serve out the remaining 6 years of my term. He told me repeatedly that he had talked to lots of people about me, including our current Attorney General, and had learned.
Oh, really? Jeff Sessions?
Learned that I was doing a great job. And
Jeff Sessions said you were doing a great job? Well, that pretty much makes sense.
That I was extremely well liked by the FBI workforce. So it confused me when I saw on television the president saying that he actually fired me because of the Russia investigation.
So what? He didn't just fire you because of well, who cares what he said on television? Who cares what he said? That's irrelevant. He wasn't charged with obstruction. The whole thing was nonsense. You can't charge somebody with obstruction for pushing back against an unlawful probe full of illegal activity, which is what you're doing right now, committing perjury pertaining directly to this cover-up and this fabrication. You had no right to leak classified memos because you were fired. No one cares if you were concerned or worried. People have to go through that every day of their lives. UFO talk. HA, happy Memorial Day weekend. I've been reading about Eisenhower this weekend. Trump is the best president since Eisenhower. UFO talk. Thank you. I would go with that. I agree with you. I think I might agree with you on that. UFO talk. Thank you. UFO talk. Thank you. Thank you very much. Mitchell Smith. I wish I had $1 for every time Comey said he was confused. Mitchell Smith. He's just constantly confused. The guy is a really confused guy. Mitchell Smith, thank you as always. UFO talk. I think I might agree with you on that. UFO talk, thank you. Mitchell Smith, thank you. So let's listen. So he's now perjuring himself. He has no basis. Who cares what he thinks? He's now been fired. It would be the equivalent of going back to your work after you've been fired and kicked out of your office and saying, oh, yeah, well, just one more thing. It's like, no, you're fired.
And learned again from the media that he was telling privately other parties that my firing had relieved great pressure on the Russia investigation. I was also confused by the initial explanation that was offered publicly that I was fired because of the decisions I had made during the election year. That didn't make sense to me for a whole bunch of reasons.
Who cares? Why are you even placing your viewpoint in such high esteem? Nobody cares whether you were confused or queasy or nauseated or unhappy. That American workers throughout the country have to deal with this every day, every single day of the year. A person can go into their job and get fired, and they'll just they would have to deal with the consequences. You leaked classified memos. So this entire and John Durham is going to find out by asking William Barr to declassify documents related to the memos you wrote.
Including the time and all the water that had gone under the bridge since those hard decisions that had to be made.
The water that had gone under the bridge? Only in your brain, buddy. There hadn't been water under the bridge. People are bringing this up all the time. Every day since you let Clinton go. 9-6. Hello. Let's listen to this.
That didn't make any sense to me. And all
No one cares if it made sense to you or not. And William Barr is going to declassify documents that John Durham wants pertaining to your criminal behavior. But let's continue.
though the law required no reason at all to fire an FBI director,
The law requires no reason at all to fire an FBI director. You just stated it. The law requires no reason at all.
the administration then chose to defame me and, more importantly, the FBI.
No, they chose to tell the truth about you. You are not an embodiment of the FBI. And furthermore, you could have sued. You didn't have to leak classified memos, which is a crime.
By saying that the organization was in disarray, that it was poorly led, that
Your deputy director is under criminal investigation. You're willing to testify against him. He denies your story that you never told him to leak, that he could leak information. Attorney General Loretta Lynch opposes your story that she called the email probe of Clinton's a matter. John O'Brien is trying to say that you pushed the dossier and not him. Rod Rosenstein is totally against you now. He's like one of your biggest adversaries, even though he was part of the whole thing, calling you a partisan pundit. So let's continue.
that the workforce had lost confidence in its leader. Those were lies, plain and simple. And I am so sorry that the FBI workforce had to hear them. And I'm so sorry that the American people were told them.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Rob589. Rob589. Hey, HA, how do you feel about Maddow now finally agreeing with you that maybe prosecuting Assange is a bad idea? I think that they're doing it only for utility, because they're looking at themselves and they're saying, wait, we could be next. The left has completely and utterly abandoned Assange. And it's funny how the left is like, thinks that it's standing up for so many like lofty ideals when all they care about is attaining political power. That's all they care about. So I'm happy that, Rob589, thank you. I'm happy that she's hopefully changed her viewpoint, but I think it's purely for utility because she thinks she could be next down the road. They have a lot of segments. We finally obtained Trump's tax returns. Like, you better make sure you don't fall into that gray area of criminality or criminality that you claim liberals should be prosecuted. Thank you, Rob589. Thank you. Let's continue.
I worked every day at the FBI to help make that great organization better.
And every day now, John Durham is going to ask William Barr to declassify some kind of FBI document to expose and illuminate all the criminal behavior that you helped engage in.
And I say help because I did nothing alone at the FBI.
And that's the problem, baby. You did nothing alone. We're all going to find out exactly who helped you cover up Clinton's crimes and set up and frame and fabricate the Russia probe against Trump.
There are no indispensable people at the FBI. The organization's great strength is that its values and abilities run deep and wide.
REM, where's your Farrah Fawcett poster? I should get one. Beth Bob, keep speaking the truth. Thank you. Thank you, REM. Rob EM. Sorry, Rob EM. Thank you, and keep speaking the truth. Beth Bob, thank you. Ram Lafara, thank you, HA, for what you do. Ram Lafara, thank you for being just so wonderful always, and for always just watching and just being so supportive. Thank you, Ramla. I hope all is well. Thank you again. Let's listen to the soulful sounds of James Comey.
The FBI will be fine without me. The FBI's mission will be relentlessly pursued by its people, and that mission is to protect the American people and uphold the Constitution of the United States. I will deeply miss being part of that mission, but this organization and its mission will go on long beyond me and long beyond any particular administration. I have a message before I close for my former colleagues of the FBI. But
even the one that you're willing to testify against, McCabe?
First, I want the American people to know this truth. The FBI is honest. The FBI is strong. And the FBI is and always will be independent.
I'm wonderful, I'm strong, and people love me. What was that? That Saturday Night Live skit?
And now to my former colleagues, if I may. I am so sorry that I didn't get the chance to say goodbye.
I want him to go like, shout out to Andrew McCabe.
Bye to you properly. It was the honor of my life to serve beside you, to be part of the FBI family, and I will miss it for the rest of my life. Thank you for standing watch. Thank you for doing so much good for this country. Do that good as long as ever you can.
Fabricate crimes as long as ever you can. Set up and trap generals and campaign officials and just say they lied when they didn't, as long as ever, Peter Strzok. This is before Peter Strzok said, "We will stop Trump." My God.
And senators, I look forward to your questions.
Who buys like this shtick, this nonsense? This never even flew. They just it's like, and this is the foundation of what is going to lead Durham and Barr to declassify documents. This public relations nonsense from Comey. He overstepped his boundaries. Had he not been in public view this whole time, it actually would have benefited him. He might have gotten away with everything. Now he's eventually going to get indicted because he's such an overt criminal.
Director, thank you for that testimony, both oral and the written testimony that you provided to the committee yesterday and made public to the American people.
I don't, as I sit here, I don't.
Or Dan Coates's office, the DNI?
I would assume yes.
Michael Flynn resigned 4 days after Attorney General Sessions was sworn in. Do you know if the Attorney General was aware of the concerns about Michael Flynn during that period?
What concerns, by the way? He wasn't indicted on any issue or statute related to collusion. He was indicted only on allegedly lying to Peter Strzok. So there were no concerns with Michael Flynn. That whole thing where he didn't tell the vice president what he spoke about with Sergei Kislyak was complete nonsense. Who cares? Who cares? And I'll say this, President Trump made the wrong move. President Trump made the wrong move. He should never, ever, ever, have, he should never have fired General Michael Flynn. Had he never fired General Michael Flynn, we could have gotten to the bottom of all of this a lot sooner.
Don't, as I sit here, I don't recall that he was. I could be wrong, but I don't remember that he was.
And finally, let's see if you can give us some sense of who recommended your firing. Besides the letters from the Attorney General, the Deputy Attorney General, do you have any information on who may have recommended or have been involved in your firing?
I don't.
So you don't have any information on who was involved in your firing, but you're going to go out of your way to blame the president for misrepresenting your getting kicked out of the FBI? How does that work? And you could tell he's lying there by just the body language. That's another example of perjury. I mean, we haven't even gotten into, like, you know, the absolute examples of perjury where he's like, oh, I waited until we interviewed Clinton. It was a unanimous decision to not indict Clinton. Those are like overt, like obvious against the law. You're under oath. You lied.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Comey, let me begin by thanking you for your voluntary compliance with our request to appear before this.
With all due respect, it's not just voluntary compliance. He longed for this day. This was utilized for the media to lionize Comey. Sean Finnery, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're watching. I'm glad everyone's watching. Thank you.
This committee and assist us in this very important investigation. I want first to ask you about your conversations with the president, the 3 conversations in which you told him that he was.
Senator Collins, why are you giving this overt liar a chance to give us his maniacal rantings about conversations that may or may not have taken place? And maybe the conversation took place, but the dialogue is almost certainly completely altered by Comey.
It's not under investigation. The first was during your January 6th meeting, according to your testimony, in which it appears that you actually volunteered that assurance. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did you limit that statement to counterintelligence investigations, or were you talking about any kind of FBI investigation?
I didn't use the term counterintelligence. I was speaking to him and briefing him about some salacious and unverified material.
Why did you show him salacious and unverified material unless you were trying to rub it in his face and use it for leverage?
It was in the context of that he had a strong and defensive reaction about that not being true.
As anyone would. As anyone would.
And my reading of it was important for me to assure him we were not personally investigating him. And so the context then was actually narrower.
So you were so transparent that you told the president that there was actually a criminal investigation based on a dossier that was unverified and salacious, but that you weren't investigating him. But you didn't tell him that you were investigating everyone around him? How does that work? I mean, these people are so... Omar Pena! These people are so transparently insidious. It's so easy to find out what's going on. It's not like hard. It's not like... They're not like so slick. You just can't... You don't know what's happening. What he does is simply... He shows the dossier to Trump, and we can find out documents hopefully related to why he showed Trump the dossier, and definitely documents related to why they utilized the dossier and deceived FISA judges if it was completely and utterly unverified. Carrie, hello. And it's like you inform Trump that there's a dossier, then you try to say that he's not being investigated, but then you fail to tell him that everyone around him is being investigated because of this nonsensical, irrational, phony dossier purchased by Hillary Clinton.
Focused on what I just talked to him about. That was very important because it was first true, and second, I was very, very much about being in kind of a J. Edgar Hoover type situation. I didn't want him thinking that I was briefing him on this to sort of hang it over him in some way.
But that's exactly what you did. That's exactly what you did. Borracho wins hello. That's exactly what you did. So they engage in something J. Edgar Hoover would engage in, and then in the most absurd way, they say, gosh, but we just didn't want to seem that. We were acting that way. That's exactly what you did.
I was briefing him on it because we had been told by the media it was about to launch. We don't want to be
You've been told by the media because you fed the stories to the media.
keeping that from him. And if there was he needed to know this was being said.
He needed to know that you were investigating everyone around him. You didn't tell him that. And if it weren't for this phony veneer of reverence that people have around you, this nauseating reverence, this deference to your post, simply being the FBI director has given this guy so much credibility. If you found like just the average criminal in an alleyway someplace on the street, it would be the same thing as Comey in a suit as a former FBI director. There's no difference. There's zero difference. In fact, the criminal's probably more honest. The street criminal's probably a lot more honest.
But I was very keen not to leave him with an impression that the Bureau was trying to do something to him. And so that's the context in which I said, sir, we're not personally investigating you.
Then why didn't you inform him that Papadopoulos was being framed? That Flynn was framed? That Manafort was framed? That everyone around him was being tapped and unmasked and investigated? That's, declassified documents related to that. It is so obvious what's taking place.
And that's why you volunteered the information.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
You volunteered only information that could potentially, that you thought could help you circumvent the obvious act of blackmail and using the Steele dossier as leverage. So what they're doing now is very much like what factcheck.org and a lot of these like PolitiFact, what they'll do is they'll reiterate something and they'll say, well, but you know what? There is still no evidence that there's intent here or whatever. It's like he is trying to mask his true intent by saying, as you can see, my intent was to simply show him the dossier, which means that I didn't have any malice in my heart. No, you are claiming that when obviously what you did shows obvious malice and an obvious attempt at omitting the most important information. When he omitted the fact that his entire campaign was being surveilled and investigated by pretending to be forthright and saying, oh, well, you're not under investigation and we have this dossier. If you just leave it at that, you're being more dishonest than you would had you not even mentioned the dossier. You're deliberately giving him information to deceive while omitting the information that you should have given after letting him know about the Steele dossier. But let's continue.
Then on the January 27th dinner, you told the president that he should be careful
Mitchell Smith,
about
thank you.
asking you to investigate because, quote, you might create a narrative that we are investigating him personally.
They essentially were by investigating everyone around him. Senator Collins, don't give this guy, room to deceive.
Which we weren't. Again, were you limiting that statement?
Oh, Lord. Hold on one second.
Americans we had opened counterintelligence investigation cases on, and we specifically said the president is not one of those Americans, but that there was no other investigation of the president that we were not mentioning at that time.
That's not true.
I'm trying to understand whether there was any kind of investigation of the president underway.
No, I'm sorry. And if I misunderstood, I apologize. We briefed the congressional leadership about what Americans we had opened counterintelligence investigation cases
You briefed the congressional leadership, but not the president.
on, and we specifically said the president is not one of those Americans, but that there was no other investigation of the president that we were not mentioning at that time. What the context was counterintelligence, but I wasn't.
There was no other investigation of the president. You didn't tell him about what? Again, she's specifically asking you, did you tell him about any investigation going on pertaining to his campaign or people that he spoke to?
Wasn't trying to hide some criminal investigation of the president.
And
he just lied to her face under oath. There were numerous investigations going on. Even Jeff Sessions was under investigation by Andrew McCabe.
was the president under investigation at the time of your dismissal on May 9th?
No.
Really
I'd
amazing.
like to now turn to the conversations.
So the president wasn't under investigation May 9th, but everyone around him was. Local enterprise broadcasting. HA, these investigations are a bigger scam than Teddy Spaghetti's on Authorized TV. Thank you, local enterprise broadcasting. Thank you. Thank you.
With the president about Michael Flynn, which had been discussed at great length. And first, let me make very clear that the president never should have cleared the room, and he never should have asked you, as you reported, to let it go, to let the investigation go.
Why not? Why not? That's not obstruction of justice. Calling it a matter would be more of obstruction than saying, hey, let it go, in passing. And James Comey could have then resigned in protest because an illegal act, he was being requested to commit an illegal act, but he didn't. So what's the problem?
But I remain puzzled by your response. Your response was, I agree that Michael Flynn is a good guy. You could have said,
wait, James Comey said Michael Flynn's a good guy. Is he obstructing justice also? This is brilliant. This is fascinating. At 1 hour 17 minutes 57 seconds into ABC News full James Comey testimony on President Donald Trump Russia investigation hearing June 8th, 2017. So James Comey called Michael Flynn a good guy.
Mr. President, this meeting is inappropriate. This response could compromise the investigation. You should not be making such a request. It's fundamental to the operation of our government that the FBI be insulated from this kind of political pressure.
So Susan Collins is doing a very good job. Aria Lee, thank you so much. Awesome stream tonight. You rock, Mr. HA. Thank you, Aria. Thank you. Let's see how he weasels his way out of this one.
And you've talked a bit today about that you were stunned by the president making the request. But my question to you is, later on, upon reflection, did you go to anyone at the Department of Justice and ask them to call the White House counsel's office and explain that the president had to have a far better understanding and appreciation of his role vis-a-vis the FBI?
In general, I did. I spoke to the Attorney General and I spoke to the new Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Rosenstein, when he took office.
So, all the wonderful Trust Sessions people. So Comey speaks to Sessions and he speaks to to Rod Rosenstein, Hot Rod Rosenstein, right when they both take office.
And explain my serious concern about the way in which the president is interacting, especially with the FBI. And I specifically, as I said in my testimony, told the Attorney General, it can't happen that you get kicked out of the room and the president talks to me.
Oh, it can't happen that you get kicked out of the room. He hated Sessions so much. Trump's like, everyone out of the room. And Sessions is like, come on, everybody, everyone out. It's only the most important people like me and Comey and the president. Everyone out. You don't have a right to be here. Right, Mr. President? I can be here, can I? You want me out also? You mean I'm not part of the cool crowd? Oh, I'll get you yet. This guy's hilarious.
But look, in the room, but why didn't we raise the specific? It was of investigative interest to us to try and figure out, so what just happened with the president's request? So I would not have wanted to alert the White House that it had happened until we figured out, what are we going to do with this investigatively?
Your testimony was that you went to...
What did he just say there? He said nothing. They're in such reverence to these. The reason is they pretend that these people know so much. Oh, this has nothing to do with the protecting American citizens. This is only to do with Facebook ads and framing the president. We have to worry, he might have worked with, and this was under the viewpoint that he might have actually worked with Russia, which we found out never happened. They had 2 years worth of suspicion. We found that it never happened. No love, ninja. CNN seems to host many future. Exactly. Kobe became strong, but yep. All going to prison. CNN is the gateway to prison. Yes. No love, ninja. That's one of the better names that I've had on this channel. Thank you, No Love Ninja. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I agree. CNN, my God. There needs to be a documentary done on this moment in time and how the left just completely went bonkers.
Attorney General Sessions and said, don't ever leave me alone with him again. Are you saying that you also told...
He told Sessions not to leave him. What's the matter? You don't want to be alone with the orange monster? You want me to protect you? The Keebler elf?
Him that he had made a request that you let it go with regard to part of the investigation of Michael Flynn?
No, I specifically did not. I did not.
You mentioned that from your very first meeting with the president, you decided to write a memo memorializing the conversation.
How do we know his memos are accurate? And why would he be, and why aren't people, John Durham needs to find all the information on why his memos are classified. And that's one, or the IG report on the Inspector General. And that's one way that he's going to be indicted. You cannot leak classified memos.
What was it about that very first meeting that made you write a memo when you had not done that with two previous presidents?
As I said, a combination of things.
Oh, so you had not done that with two previous presidents, with Obama or Bush. But Bush was, so Comey was, you had not done that with Obama. But what's his name? Mueller was the FBI director. So maybe she's referring to some other position Comey had.
A gut feeling is an important overlay on
your gut feeling? Oh, okay.
Circumstances that I was alone, the subject matter, and the nature of the person that I was interacting with, and my read of that person. And
this is like catnip to liberals. They love it. Of course you had to write memos on Orange Monster. Anyone else would have. Robbie M. In very dark time, HA begins to see. Thank you, Robbie M. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and really just a gut feel laying on top of all of that, it's going to be important to protect this organization that I make records of this.
The organization. You weren't protecting yourself. You weren't buying time and just throwing a lot of ridiculous nonsense into the airwaves and getting people politically on your side by claiming that Trump engaged in obstruction of justice by firing you and by having this conversation. Oh, and you didn't want a political purpose, which is exactly why you leaked classified memos, which is the Mueller probe. You also state you leaked classified memos because of the Mueller probe. Do you want to start the Mueller probe?
And finally, did you show copies of your memos to anyone outside of the Department of Justice?
Yes.
And to whom did you show copies?
So you leaked classified information. Very proud of it. Let's listen to this.
I asked, President tweeted on Friday after I got fired that I better hope there's not tapes. I woke up in the middle of the night on Monday night, because it didn't dawn on me originally, that there might be corroboration for our conversation. There might be a tape. And my judgment was I needed to get that out into the public square. And so
there's very likely he knows that his conversation was taped, and he very likely knows that Trump will not disclose the tape, which shows that Comey did not engage in all the dialogue that he claims to have engaged in. And it's very likely that Comey simply used that as a pretext to leak classified information that he was going to do anyway. He's going to find some reason to leak the information to start the Mueller probe. The Mueller probe started because of Comey's leaked memos, which is a crime.
I asked a friend of mine to share the content of the memo with a reporter. Didn't do it myself for a variety of reasons, but I asked him to because I thought that might prompt the appointment of a special counsel. And so I asked a close friend of mine to do it.
And was that Mr. Wittes?
You can't leak information to start a special counsel, especially when Andrew McCabe says that you leaving did not have didn't change the scope or anything involved with the investigation. So they asked Andrew McCabe, well, since Comey's gone, do you need more resources? Has anything changed? No, sir. Everything's great, sir. We don't need any more resources, sir. The FBI is still going to do everything they need, sir. Well, there you go. He's lying.
No.
Who was that?
A good friend of mine who's a professor at Columbia Law School.
So he engaged in criminal activity also. Congrats, Comey.
Thank you.
Senator Heinrich.
Ladies and gentlemen, to my super chat, thank you so very much. No Love Ninja, thank you. Thank you, everybody. This is an important segment, and it just highlights exactly the kind of criminal behavior engaged by people like Comey. They deliberately set up and frame Trump, and they hide behind the most wonderful intentions. Whereas as they're setting up Trump, they give the impression that Trump naturally has the most horrible intentions while they have the best intentions. So their overt criminal activity can't be taken at face value. Give me your thoughts below. To my super chat, thank you so very much. I will be back later on this evening. Thank you, everyone.